Names of those involved in this case have been changed completely to protect their privacy or identities.
Imagine this. A 3-year-old boy dressed in his favorite Spider-Man costume playing in his grandmother's backyard. 5 minutes later, he's gone. No screams, no struggle, no trace, just silence. And for over 11 years, Australia has been haunted by one burning question. What happened to William Tyrrell? Welcome to The Only Witness, and today I'm bringing you the most shocking recent developments in a case that refuses to die. Hey everyone, if you're new here, smash that subscribe button because we're diving deep into one of Australia's most disturbing mysteries. And to my returning viewers, drop a comment right now. Tell me where you're watching from. Are you in Sydney, Melbourne, the United States, United Kingdom? I want to know. Let's build this community together. Now, here's what makes this story absolutely insane. We're not just talking about a missing child case anymore. We're talking about buried bodies, convicted pedophiles, secret recordings, foster parents turned suspects, and explosive new allegations that could finally crack this case wide open. So buckle up, because the next 45 minutes will reveal everything you need to know about the latest bombshells in the William Tyrrell investigation. Let me set the scene for those who don't know the basics. September 12th, 2014. Kendal, New South Wales. A tiny coastal town with barely over 1,000 people. The kind of place where nothing bad ever happens. William Tyrrell, just 3 years old, was visiting his foster grandmother's house on Benaroon Drive with his foster mother and foster sister. He was wearing that iconic Spider-Man suit. You've probably seen the photo. That cheeky little smile, those bright blue eyes. That image is burned into the memory of every Australian. At approximately 10:30 in the morning, William was playing in the front and backyards with his sister. His foster mother and foster grandmother were sitting outside, watching them. The foster mother went inside to make a cup of tea. She was gone for maybe 5 minutes. When she came back outside, William was gone. Just like that. Vanished into thin air. At 10:57 a.m., she called emergency services. Police arrived at 11:06 a.m. and thus began one of the most extensive missing persons investigations in Australian history. Hundreds of police officers, state emergency services, rural fire service members, helicopters, motorcycles, police divers. They searched every house in the area multiple times. They combed through dense bushland. They dragged waterways. Nothing. Not a single trace of William Tyrrell has ever been found. Now, here's where this case gets complicated. And I need you to pay close attention because this is crucial to understanding the recent developments. William Tyrrell was a foster child. Australian law protects the identity of children in foster care, which means we cannot legally name or show the faces of William's foster parents. The media has referred to them simply as William's foster mother and foster father. Remember that because it's going to be important. For the first several years of the investigation, police believed William had been abducted by an opportunistic stranger, possibly connected to a pedophile ring. About 20 registered sex offenders were living in the surrounding area of Kendal when William disappeared. The investigation became massive. Strikeforce Roseanne was established with 14 detectives working full-time. They interviewed over 1,000 people, created 11,000 documents, identified 690 persons of interest. The New South Wales government even offered a $1 million reward for information leading to William's recovery. But then, everything changed. In November 2021, 7 years after William disappeared, police announced they had received new evidence and were renewing the search, but this time with a completely different assumption. They weren't looking for a living child anymore, they were looking for remains. And even more shocking, they announced that William's foster mother and his now deceased foster grandmother were being treated as persons of interest. Let me repeat that. The woman who reported William missing, the woman who had raised him since he was 8 months old, was now a suspect. The investigation had turned completely on its head. So what changed? What evidence did police discover that made them shift their entire focus from external predators to the foster family? Well, in June 2023, police took the unprecedented step of recommending charges against William's foster mother, not for murder, not for manslaughter, but for perverting the course of justice and interfering with a corpse. Police believed that William had died in an accident and that his foster mother had disposed of his body. Think about that for a moment. Police were essentially saying they believed William died accidentally at the grandmother's property, and the foster mother panicked and hid his body somewhere in the surrounding bushland. They believed she knew where William was the entire time, but here's where it gets even more twisted. Despite recommending these charges, despite conducting massive searches of the bushland around the grandmother's property, despite seizing the foster grandmother's car for forensic testing, despite all of this, no charges have been filed. In May 2024, police suspended their request for the Director of Public Prosecutions to consider charging the foster mother. They didn't have enough evidence. And before we go any further, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started, and trust me, this story gets wilder. Also, drop a comment and let me know what you think so far. Do you think the foster mother is involved, or is this the biggest investigative failure in Australian history? The foster mother has consistently and strenuously denied any involvement in William's disappearance. Through her lawyers, she has repeatedly stated that she had nothing to do with what happened to William and has demanded that police show her any evidence they have against her. She has called the police investigation a smear campaign designed to destroy her reputation. And here's the thing that makes this case so controversial. The foster mother's lawyers have a point. Think about the timeline. Police cleared the family of involvement early in the investigation. For 7 years, they focused on external suspects. Then suddenly, based on what they claim is new evidence, they pivot completely and spend the next 3 years trying to build a case against the foster mother. They conduct massive, highly publicized searches. Details are leaked to the media. And yet, after all that, they can't produce enough evidence to charge her. Some legal experts and journalists have called this a malicious prosecution. They say police became so fixated on the foster mother theory that they stopped looking for William. They stopped investigating other leads, and now, over 11 years after William disappeared, we're no closer to finding him. But wait. There's more. Because while police were focused on the foster mother, something else was happening in the background. Something that might be the biggest break in this case yet. Enter Frank Abbott. A convicted pedophile who was living just 4 kilometers from where William disappeared. Abbott has been a person of interest in this case since the beginning, but he's always denied any involvement. He was even acquitted in the early 1990s of murdering a teenage girl back in 1968. Something he apparently bragged about constantly, treating it like a badge of honor. Multiple witnesses at the coronial inquest testified about Abbott's strange behavior after William disappeared. A local man named Dean Anderson told the court that Abbott made comments about police searching in the wrong spot for William. Abbott also repeatedly talked about smelling something dead in bushland near Logan's Crossing. When Anderson suggested it was probably a dead kangaroo, Abbott allegedly said, and I quote, "No, I know the difference between a dead kangaroo and a dead human smell." When asked how he would know what a dead human smells like, Abbott ended the conversation. Neighbors testified that Abbott would show up at their homes late at night, unprompted, wanting to talk about William. One woman said she had a funny feeling about Abbott and would lock her car doors whenever he tried to get a ride with her children in the vehicle. Another disturbing testimony involved allegations about Abbott and bestiality with a neighbor's dog. The picture being painted was of a deeply disturbed individual who seemed suspiciously interested in William's case. But here's where this story takes an absolutely explosive turn. In 2025, a new podcast called Witness, William Tyrrell conducted a months-long investigation into Frank Abbott, and what they uncovered might finally solve this case. Before you hear what they found, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed to The Only Witness. We bring you these deep dives every week, and your support keeps us going. Also, comment below where you think William is. Do you believe the police theory about the foster mother, or do you think a predator took him? The podcast spoke to 2 men who currently live in a house where Frank Abbott once resided. These men claim they heard shocking details from Abbott's now-deceased brother, Jeffrey Abbott, also known as Bluey. According to these witnesses, Bluey told them that Frank Abbott was involved in what happened to William Tyrrell. But it gets even more specific. Bluey allegedly said William is buried at a place called the Bird Tree. The Bird Tree, also known as Big Bird Mountain, is one of the largest blackbutt trees in New South Wales. It's a prominent landmark in the area, located approximately 20 minutes, or about 10 kilometres, from William's foster grandmother's house. And here's the kicker. Police have never searched this area. Despite over a decade of investigation, despite massive searches of bushland around Kendall, the Bird Tree has never been investigated. The podcast also uncovered allegations that Frank Abbott boasted to people about killing William and dumping his body in a suitcase at Big Bird Mountain. Abbott is currently in prison for child sex offences, and while he watched parts of the coronial inquest via video link and even requested to give evidence, he was never called as a witness. This is despite recorded phone calls made by Abbott in prison being tendered as evidence, where he can be heard saying police think he might have done this one, referring to his potential involvement in William's disappearance. Former homicide detective Peter Hogan has publicly called for police to conduct a thorough search of the Bird Tree area. He stated that they cannot simply ignore the possibility that William may or may not be buried there. He also called for Abbott to be subpoenaed to give evidence at the coronial inquest and to be thoroughly investigated by police. But wait, there's even more. The podcast investigation didn't just focus on the Bird Tree claims. They also uncovered allegations from 3 separate individuals claiming that Frank Abbott sexually assaulted other young people in the area. These are new allegations that were never heard during the inquest. 1 alleged victim, 1 alleged witness, and a 3rd person who said they personally knew a victim, all came forward independently with similar stories about Abbott. And if that wasn't enough, there's another disturbing element to this case that has never been fully explained. Remember how I mentioned that before William disappeared, witnesses saw suspicious cars in the area? On the morning William vanished, his foster mother reported seeing 2 cars parked on Benaroon Drive in a strange manner. A white station wagon and an older grey sedan. They were parked between 2 driveways with their driver's side windows down. These cars were unknown in the neighbourhood, and they've never been seen again since William disappeared. Even more suspicious, at approximately 9 a.m. that morning, a green or grey sedan drove past the house while William and his sister were riding bikes in the driveway. The car drove into the no-through road, did a U-turn in a neighbour's driveway, and drove back out. Who was driving that car? Why were they there? Police have never been able to identify these vehicles or their drivers. Now, there's another angle to this story that might blow your mind. Remember when I said William was in foster care? Well, there's a backstory here that makes everything even more complicated. William was placed into foster care when he was just 8 months old. His biological parents had a troubled relationship marked by domestic violence and substance abuse. When the Department of Family and Community Services tried to take William into care in 2012, something shocking happened. William's biological paternal grandmother, Natalie Collins, admitted in 2024 that she helped hide William and his biological parents for 3 months. She said, and I quote, "I hid them for 3 months after I knew state government officials were going to take William. I arranged it all." Authorities eventually found them, and William was placed with his foster family in Sydney's wealthy North Shore area. But here's what's interesting. William had actually been reported missing once before, 2 years before his 2014 disappearance, when his biological family went into hiding. So in a bizarre twist, William Tyrrell was technically a missing child twice in his short life. The foster family, by all accounts, loved William. They were considering formally adopting him, though they hadn't informed his biological parents of this plan. The foster mother was a wealthy, educated woman. The foster father was successful in business. They gave William a stable, comfortable life. But the podcast investigation also revealed that William's behaviour had been challenging. The foster parents had expressed concerns about his conduct, though the specifics have not been made public due to legal protections. Now let me circle back to the police theory about the foster mother, because this is where things get really controversial. Police believe that on the morning of September 12, 2014, William died in some kind of accident at the grandmother's property. They theorized that the foster mother panicked, placed William's body in her mother's car, and drove it into the bushland to dispose of it. They conducted extensive searches of the area based on this theory. even bringing in cadaver dogs and forensic teams. During a crime commission hearing in 2021, the foster mother was aggressively questioned about this theory. She was asked why she didn't immediately call her husband or emergency services when she first realized William was missing. She responded that she thought maybe William had walked off and her husband might have seen him on the road and picked him up. The commission pressed her repeatedly. Did you take William's body? Did you put him in your mother's car? Did you dump him in the bushland? She denied everything. Audio recordings played at the 2024 coronial inquest revealed the foster mother talking to a friend about the massive 2021 police search operation. She said it wasted millions and millions of dollars and got nothing. She also made a chilling statement that William's skeleton would be found in 40 years when they are doing clearing. Now, I want to pause here and let you think about that statement. Was she speaking from guilt, knowing where the body actually is? Or was she speaking from frustration, believing that William was taken by a predator and his remains are somewhere in the vast bushland where they'll eventually be stumbled upon decades from now? It's a statement that can be interpreted two completely different ways. Before we continue, drop a comment right now and tell me what you think. Is the foster mother guilty, or is she being railroaded by incompetent police? I want to hear your theories. Here's another complication. The foster mother has been charged with completely separate crimes. In 2021, she was charged with assaulting and intimidating a different child in her care, not William. She pleaded guilty to assault after admitting to striking the child with a wooden spoon and kicking them in the thigh. She was convicted in March 2024, but in May 2024, her conviction was overturned on appeal. A judge found the offences proven but imposed a 12-month conditional release order without conviction. The foster father was also charged with intimidating the same child. His conviction was similarly overturned on appeal. Now, why is this relevant? Because it shows that the foster parents were not perfect. They had incidents of physical discipline that crossed legal boundaries. Does this make them capable of covering up an accidental death? Some would say yes. Others would argue these are completely separate issues that have nothing to do with William. The foster mother was also charged with giving false or misleading information to the Crime Commission during their investigation into William's disappearance. She fought those charges and was ultimately found not guilty. So where does this leave us? It's now October 2025. William Tyrrell has been missing for over 11 years. The coronial inquest has been ongoing since 2019, with multiple delays and adjournments. The inquest has heard from hundreds of witnesses, examined thousands of documents, and explored multiple theories. And yet, we still don't have answers. The case has essentially split into two major competing theories. Theory 1. William died in an accident at his foster grandmother's property, and his foster mother disposed of his body in nearby bushland. This is the police's current working theory, though they've been unable to find enough evidence to charge anyone. Theory 2. William was abducted by a predator, possibly Frank Abbott or someone connected to him, and his remains are buried near the bird tree or another location that has never been properly searched. Here's what we know for certain. William Tyrrell disappeared on September 12, 2014. No trace of him has ever been found despite one of the most extensive investigations in Australian history. His foster mother reported him missing and has been the subject of intense scrutiny and investigation, but has never been charged in connection with his disappearance. Multiple convicted pedophiles lived in the area, including Frank Abbott, who made suspicious statements and whose brother allegedly claimed he was involved and knew where William was buried. Police have never searched the bird tree area despite the new allegations. The coronial inquest is ongoing with findings expected sometime in the future, though no specific date has been set. And here's the most frustrating part. Just a few weeks ago, in October 2025, there was a brief moment of hope. A Spider-Man costume was discovered at a beachside property in Dunbogan, about 20 minutes from Kendall. People immediately wondered if it could be connected to William. Police seized the costume for forensic testing, but within days they announced it had no connection to William's case. Another dead end. Another cruel twist in this never-ending nightmare. Let me tell you why this case matters so much, beyond just the obvious tragedy of a missing child. This case has exposed massive flaws in Australia's foster care system. William was in a system designed to protect him, yet he vanished without a trace. His biological family was dysfunctional and unable to care for him. His foster family loved him, but is now under suspicion. The system failed everyone. This case has also exposed potential investigative failures by New South Wales Police. They spent years looking at external suspects, then pivoted to the foster mother, conducted massive publicised searches, leaked information to media, and still couldn't build a case strong enough to charge anyone. Critics argue they became so fixated on one theory that they stopped properly investigating alternatives. Supporters of the police say they've done everything possible with the evidence available. And this case has exposed how difficult it is to solve crimes where there's no body, no crime scene, and no physical evidence. William literally vanished. No blood, no DNA, no witnesses to an actual crime. How do you solve a case like that? How do you prove what happened when you have nothing? The biological family has suffered immensely. William's biological mother and father lost their son to the foster care system, and then lost him again to this mystery. William's biological grandmother, Natalie Collins, has spoken publicly about her regret, saying she should have taken William herself rather than letting him enter foster care. She blames the system for everything that happened. The foster family has also been destroyed. The foster mother and foster father have seen their reputations dragged through the mud. They've been accused in the court of public opinion of murdering the child they loved. They've been charged with other crimes involving different children. Their lives have been torn apart. If they're innocent, and many legal experts believe they are, then they're victims too. And let's not forget the broader community. Kendall is a tiny town. Everyone knows everyone. This case has divided people. Some believe the foster mother theory. Others believe a predator took William. Suspicion and paranoia have poisoned relationships. The town will never be the same. Now let me bring this to the present moment and talk about what happens next. The coronial inquest is set to resume with additional hearings. The coroner, Deputy State Coroner Harriet Graham, will eventually have to make findings about what she believes happened to William. She can make recommendations. She can point to potential suspects. But she cannot charge anyone with crimes. That power rests with the Director of Public Prosecutions. Police have said their investigation into the foster mother has been suspended, not closed. They're waiting for the coronial process to potentially reveal new evidence. They're also supposedly still investigating other leads, though critics question how thoroughly they're doing so, given their apparent obsession with the foster mother theory. The bombshell allegations about Frank Abbott and the bird tree remain unaddressed by police. Former detectives and legal experts have called for an immediate search of that area. They've called for Abbott to be compelled to testify. But as of now, police have not taken visible action on these claims. Here's my take, and I want to be clear, this is just my analysis based on the evidence available. I think police made a catastrophic error when they pivoted entirely to the foster mother theory. I think they became convinced they solved the case, conducted their massive searches expecting to find William's remains, and when they found nothing, they were too invested to admit they might be wrong. The allegations about Frank Abbott cannot be ignored. A convicted pedophile with a history of suspicious behaviour, living 4 kilometres from where William disappeared, making statements about knowing where William might be, whose brother allegedly claimed he was involved. How is that not worthy of the same level of investigation that the foster mother received? But here's the counter-argument. Maybe police investigated Abbott thoroughly and found nothing concrete. Maybe the bird tree claims are just rumours from unreliable sources. Maybe the foster mother theory is based on evidence we don't know about because it hasn't been made public. We don't have all the information. We're looking at this through the narrow lens of what's been reported in media and court proceedings. What I do know is this. A 3-year-old boy is gone. His family, both biological and foster, are destroyed. A community is traumatized. And after 11 years and millions of dollars spent investigating, we're no closer to the truth than we were on day one. Before I wrap this up, I want to ask you something. If you know anything about William Tyrrell's disappearance, if you have any information at all, please contact Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000. There's still a $1 million reward for information leading to William's recovery. That reward does not require anyone to be arrested or convicted. Just information that leads to finding William. And to everyone watching this video, please share it. Share it on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, wherever. The more people who know about William's case, the more likely someone somewhere has information that could help. William deserves justice. His family deserves answers. And the Australian public deserves to know the truth about what happened that September morning in Kendall. Let me end with this thought. William Tyrrell would be 14 years old now. He'd be starting high school. He'd be playing sports, making friends, discovering who he is. Instead, he's frozen forever as that 3-year-old in the Spider-Man suit. That's the real tragedy here. Not just that we don't know what happened, but that a child's entire life, all his potential, everything he could have become was stolen that day. So here's what I want you to do. Subscribe to The Only Witness if you haven't already. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what you think happened to William. Hit that like button if you want me to continue covering this case as new developments emerge. And most importantly, keep William's story alive. Don't let him be forgotten. Don't let his case go cold. True crime isn't entertainment when you remember these are real people, real families, real pain. William Tyrrell was real. He was loved. He mattered. And 11 years later, he still matters. His case may be unsolved, but it's not over. Not by a long shot. This is The Only Witness signing off. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and never stop seeking the truth. I'll see you in the next one.